What's up, gang? Andrew Cooper here, aka Coop Fiasco. This is Coop's Fantasy Football Fiasco on Fantasy Alarm on Bettor Sports Network, sponsored by FFPC. Let's go. Week 13 is here, and after the sweet holiday weekend, week 12, no bye weeks, no nothing, hanging out, having fun with friends and family, all of a sudden we get completely rug pulled by Buymageddon Part 2, injuries all over the place, question marks, guys getting released. Zach Ertz, free agent, crazy stuff right now. So to help you guys out, to help fix things, I brought in a good buddy of mine, Fantasy Alarm family member, Colby Conway, man. And no better time to bring Colby in than when his favorite team, the Texans, are fun. And they're hot right now. And I want to talk to him about that, talk to him about everything here. Here's the deal for those that don't know, to help us help you, do your best to get questions in when we're talking about the slate. We're going to go through each particular team, each matchup. And if you have a question about Rachaad White and we're talking about that game, you throw it in there. It helps us keep the conversation smooth between us and get your questions answered. Good for everybody. So without further ado, let me bring in Mr. Colby Conway. Colby, what's up, brother?
Man, doing well. Love that little intro video. First clip, a Houston player. This is we're in uncharted waters for me. I'm not used to positive headlines, and I was in Vegas a couple weeks ago talking to my family, and you just hear people you hear the announcers and they're like, "Oh, Houston, they've just been in dismay the past couple years," and it's like, listen, we can talk about the good stuff. It's like, they got CJ Stroud, everything's going great, and for a franchise that's been stricken the past couple years, I'm like, just leave the last part off.
That's right,
we
dude.
don't keep going back to it. Like we all know
dog
this
us,
stuff
dude.
for years. Let it go. We're good now.
Right.
It's fun.
And the thing with you, Colby, man, that I really appreciate is that you the entire time have been very realistic about the team, even back then and now. Like you've always pointed out the bright spots back when things were dull, and now you're still realistic about it. And I always go to you for stuff like that because some fans, they get a little carried away, with you try and ask Jim Bowden about the Cowboys, and there's not one bad player in the organization, right? The guys that bring the water are the best in the best there's ever been, the whole thing. So I appreciate your candor and your honesty. So before we get into the slate, I want to ask you what you thought about last night's game. Now, when you look at how the game shook out, it looks like a good game on paper. There were a lot of good plays, but the penalties, man, the penalties. Do you think that was a driving force in the offensive production in a game like that, or what were your thoughts on what you saw yesterday?
Well, there was one drive. It was one of the first. Actually, it probably happened on multiple occasions, but coming out of the second half, it was like it was 5 penalties for 20 some yards on Seattle, and it all went for first downs. And it's like there are times like when you slow-mo any play in the National Football League, you're going to find a penalty.
Right.
That's how it is. Like you can't slow it down and then be like, oh, there it is. Like watch it in real time. And like some of the officiating, you can even point to some games last week, cough, the Houston game, and there were some questionable calls being made. It definitely affects it. I don't want to throw shade on like high school field hockey game, but like that's what it seemed like. It was like you get a little bit of action, break in the action because there's a whistle, and it's this and this, and it just happened and happened. It was a little bit of a tough watch. Thank goodness there were a ton of points scored, or the way we'd be talking about this game now would be vastly
nightmare. Because those games can be bad if you don't have like the 70-yard touchdown. And I will say, like to your point with the Texans, with the game this past week, you saw it with the you wish that there could be some level of like let the kids play, because like with the big throw to Tank Dell, which crazy throw by CJ Stroud, like that thing had traveled like 70 yards in the air and he made the catch, and then it turns out that it's like an illegal motion penalty that brings that back. It's like, did that play happen because of illegal motion? Of course not. Like it was literally just a jump ball downfield, so it's like it stinks, but it's part of the game, man. So what are you going to do? Do you think, before we go on, do you think the Cowboys are contenders? They've been an interesting team where they're not really playing real games. It's either like blowouts where they get blown out, or they're not good on the road, but they're good at home. Do you think that they're a top 5 team, top 3 team? Where do you put the Cowboys?
They're one of a handful. You can count on one hand teams in the NFC with a shot. That's really where they come into. And actually, there's last night you can look at it and you can point to their defense getting picked apart by Geno Smith, Shane Waldron, and co. And you can look at that. But I think the bigger takeaway from that game was that, and it kind of goes to what you said, they played a close, competitive game and they showed that they could win that close, competitive game. And that's what they need, because they're not blowing teams out by 20 in the playoffs. Maybe the opening round if they get lucky, depending on matchup. But when it comes to facing the Eagles, the 49ers, that's not happening. So we actually got to see Dallas play a tight competitive game and show that they can win that tight competitive game. So I think there's a lot of positive things to take away. Did they finally beat a team with a winning record? Sure, but who cares about that?
Barely. They don't have a winning record now, and now they're 6-6, right? So
they showed that in a close competitive game down the stretch, they can close it out and get the dub.
Right. And they've looked a lot better with the offensive line healthy. But you're right. Like in the NFC, it's the Eagles, the Cowboys, the Lions, and the 49ers. And
those are the four.
That's it, dude. I mean, like Packers are like the next best team. Who's even winning that other division? The Falcons?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I guess. I don't know. I think I can confidently state. Actually, I'm gonna take that back. I cannot confidently state, but of any of those four teams in that division, let's just say Carolina had a shot at the playoffs. Let's say they were all even record. They're not. A Baker Mayfield-led offense is the one I'm probably most excited about in a playoff game. Like that's the state of the affairs in the NFC South. It's ugly there. I guess Atlanta comes on top, but everyone seems to hate Atlanta from a fantasy perspective. And I get why. Don't get me wrong.
I know, but no, I'm with you, man. It's Arthur. We know why. So shout out chat. We see you guys. Ann Dunn, Jack, Albert, Toronto Dave, Geek Mill, what's up, baby? How we doing? Got a question from Michelle. We'll get to that right now. Before we do that, Toronto Dave, set the or anyone else that wants to. We've actually never on this show, Colby, got through all the games on the slate. We always get sidetracked. We get derailed. It's never happened to the point where now it's kind of a joke. So TD and everybody in the chat, set the over-under. There's 12 games this week. Last week, the over-under was set at 7.5, and we went under. It's officially under when I say, okay, we got to rapid fire now. When I say it's time to rapid fire, that's when we just rapid fire the last couple games we count. So set the over under how many games we get through. I think we could do all right today. I think we can do all right. We're going to draft an FFPC team at the midway point. Use promo code Coop over at myffpc.com for signing up for your first time. They'll give you $35 they'll give you 25 when you deposit 35 or more. So go get set up with that so you can play with us. But let's answer this question real quick and then we'll get into it. Michelle wants to know, half PPR needs 2. Amari Cooper, Deontay Johnson, Terry McLaurin, Jerome Ford. So 2 of those guys, 2 on the bench, half PPR.
Yeah, I think for me here, the Cleveland quarterback situation scares me a little bit. I love the matchup for Deontay Johnson, but that's interesting. Jerome Ford's got the workload. McLaurin's got a good matchup. I'd probably go the last 2 if you're asking me. I go McLaurin and Jerome Ford. I'm
fully with you, man. I'm fully with you. Like Flacco, definitely. I think of all the players on the Browns, Amari Cooper definitely benefits from Flacco the most because he's willing to push it downfield and chuck it. But we don't even know if Flacco's going to start, or what he's going to look like. So yeah, I'm with you, McLaurin and Ford. If it was full PPR, I might consider Deontay too. But all right, let's get into some matchups here. First one, Colts at Titans, and this is what I do, Colby. I'm not going to expect you to pick every game or bet on every game, but what I will ask you is there a bet here? Like, so for most games for me, I look at it and I say, division game, probably not going to bet that, this or that. But if there's something you really like, let me know. So Colts -1, over-under is 42.5. Is there a bet there for you or not?
The one I like the most, and I keep coming back to it with these Colts games, is I like their overs because their defense is bad enough that they let up points. Same thing with Tennessee. And I'm looking at when they played earlier this year, 23-16. So it actually went under this line, but it's close enough. I like both of the passing offenses in this one. So if I were to lean here, I'd actually take the over in this Colts-Titans game.
All right, I'm in. All right, here we go. Ann Dunn setting the over-under at 8 games. Chat, get your bets in, whether it's going to be over or under. We'll see. I'm betting the over on this one. I think we can get through some games here. Zach Moss, man, where are you ranking him? RB1. I'm not going to ask for, pinpoint a specific spot, but RB1 range, RB2 range up against the Titans?
Yeah, I mean, I want to say RB2 because you can't run on Tennessee, but go look at the game log with him earlier in the year. I think that was Taylor's first game back, if I'm not mistaken, and Moss rumbled for what felt like 300-some yards in that game. So I think you have to put him – I think you still got to put him probably to high end to middle RB2 tier because you got to think he's getting volume. It doesn't matter if they're facing a brick wall on run defense. Indy's running the ball. That's what they want to do, and they're going to do that. So volume is going to be there. He's unchallenged for touches. He's going to be the main red zone guy, so you're getting those there. So I think you got to put him as a pretty confident RB2 despite the matchup and just hope that, I mean, hey, he did it once. It's in his bag. So can he do it again against Tennessee?
Hell yeah. Let's go, dude. So I'm in on Zach Moss, man. I'm in on Kyron Williams. Like, guys getting the full job. I don't care. Rashad White, run him up against a brick wall. Joe Mixon. Like, we sit and nitpick all this stuff, and then we sit down in a 12-team fantasy league with 2 RB spots and a flex spot, and it's very hard not to have these guys in your lineup unless your team's a wagon. So what are you going to do?
When you look at it too, like with a guy like Moss, like if it's we've seen it with other guys. If he's going to get 20 carries, I don't care how inefficient he is. 3 yards a carry at 25 carries is still 75 yards. Is it a crappy day in reality? Sure. But guess what? In fantasy, if he falls into the end zone once, sure,
Right.
I'll take it. You're double-digit points. Who cares if he stunk in real life?
That's the thing that people forget is that real football is crazy.
Volume is king.
Pass interference in the end zone, that's a touchdown for Zach Moss. And it's not because he's good or bad or the Titans are good or bad. That's just the way that the chips fall. So you got
Titans are bad, but yeah.
Yeah, they are. But not up front, though. They're good. They're good against the run, and they're good at stopping. It's hard to pass to the running back against them, too. In fact, they're letting up the fewest passes to running back. But still, I'm going to start that guy. Tight ends on this team are useless. I tweeted out last 7 games, their target leader is Will Mallory. Guess how many targets he has?
You said last 7 games?
Over 7 games. How many?
Let's say 1 a game. 7, 8.
That's exactly right.
There you go.
He's leading the team with 4 receptions. So yeah, not using any of those guys. Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, you're starting. Alec Pierce, you're not. So whatever. On the Titans side, what's your trust level on Derrick Henry, DeAndre Hopkins? Obviously, you're not starting Chig. Will Levis, you started where you have to, right? But like, where are you at with that?
I mean, Hopkins, I think his lone really notable fantasy game this year came against Indy, and he had a big day. Big day that day, went for 100+ yards and a score, I do believe. I mean, he had the other game where he had 3 touchdowns, but Indy, He beat them earlier. You can beat Indy on the perimeter. That's where the weakness is in that secondary, and that's where Hopkins plays, and he's kind of the lone wolf in that passing attack. My worry level with Henry was considerable, and thank goodness he had the 2 touchdowns last week because he otherwise crapped the bed in a very, very, very good matchup.
Right, I know. He should have done better.
The touchdowns were there. I mean, I think I'm worried. I mean, to go for 70 plus on like 18-ish carries against Carolina, you got to do more than that.
You got to do it.
So
way better than
lucky
that.
you got the touchdowns. So
yeah, for sure.
Again, volume's king, and it's there. But I think if I had to make my stance, I think I'm out on King Henry at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. So that's that game. Before we go to the next one, let's just clear the chat real quick. Nitro says, "Hey, Coop, discovered you this year. Follow you for tight end knowledge. Cheers, man. Thanks for the follow. Appreciate the support. How are you feeling about Waller for the rest of the year? Think about dropping him to pick up Likely. My stance on Waller's been the same for a while now, is that if you don't have an IR spot, you don't need to hold him because, I mean, the quarterback's Tommy DeVito. And I really like what we've seen from Isaiah Likely, so I'm making that move. Richard wants to know, Herbert on the road versus New England or Kenny Pickett in Arizona? Let's assume, for the sake of this question, that Keenan Allen's out. Colby, what do you think? Herbert with no Keenan Allen or Pickett with the new OC against the Cardinals? Seems it would have been a crazy question. I made it a little harder for you. If Keenan Allen starts, definitely start Herbert.
Yeah, I still think I would go Herbert just because there's going to be enough passing volume. And while the passing attack we've seen with Arizona, even last week, we loved the matchup for Cooper Kupp. We loved it for Puka Nacua. The other guys got involved. The game got out of hand. The receivers weren't necessarily involved. Like, what if Pittsburgh's running attack just takes over in this game?
Right.
How much can Pickett do?
It will.
And it will.
So
Exactly.
I still like Pickett. I still like betting the over on Pickett because it's like 210 or something like that, or 218. But like, I'm starting Herbert. Benjamin wants to know, what about Brevin Jordan this week with Schultz out? The options are Tucker Kraft, and that sounds like it's about it.
Kansas City's been really tough against tight ends this year. Denver has not. I understand in this case that you might be playing situation more. I like Brevin Jordan. He had a touchdown earlier in the year. I believe it was against Jacksonville in that game where he scored. And CJ Stroud has shown that he wants to get the ball to the tight end. Schultz was a little bit banged up near the end of the game last week, so the targets necessarily weren't there, but tougher matchup last week. And fantasy points per game to tight ends this year, who's allowed the most? Denver Broncos.
There you go. Yeah. Dylan wants to know, so he's a Ravens fan. He's got Lamar. You're a Texans fan. You got Stroud. Can you convince him Stroud over Lamar, or are you still on Lamar?
Boy, that's tough. That is a tough one.
Yeah, it's tough, man.
The rushing upside with Lamar is really, really hard to go away from. I understand Stroud's running a little bit more of late, but you can tell, like, if you watch a game, like even last week, he had the rushing touchdown and 20 or 30 rushing yards. He doesn't want to run. Like, he is actively looking to throw the ball until he gets to the line of scrimmage. And it's like, well, there's a line. Now I got to run, I guess. And then he takes off. So honestly, I have got an offer to give up Stroud for Lamar.
Stroud plays a lot like Mahomes in that sense, where he wants to throw a bomb. He wants to throw a bomb, and he'll run if he has to.
Yeah. Honestly, I hate that I'm saying this, but I think I would stick with Lamar for that rushing upside.
Yeah, and the schedule for Stroud is good for throwing to some degree, but in the fantasy playoffs, it goes Titans, Browns, Titans. Terrible for tight ends, terrible for running backs, but he can be all right throwing. But I'm still going to go Lamar there. Twitch gang in the house, get the Twitch glasses out for Brad McCoy. Twitch gang, trade Kittle for Schultz and Rice. If you start Rice every single week, actually, no, I wouldn't do that because the schedule for Schultz is brutal, man. I don't know if you've noticed that the number 1 team versus the tight end is the Browns. The number 2 team versus the tight end is the Titans. I just said schedule goes Titans, Browns, Titans. It's pretty ugly. Not to mention Schultz is banged up right now, so I'm not going to do that. Chargers DST versus New England or Rams DST versus Cleveland with the GOAT Joe Flacco playing. What do you think on that one?
Ooh. I will go. I'm actually going to go. I'll actually go Rams because we're going to talk a little bit later about New England, that there's one guy I think that's going to give Chargers defense some problems. So give me the Rams and let's hope for a couple INTs and sacks.
Well, let's talk New England right now. I'm a Patriots fan myself. I do have I had a Texans jersey, but it got stolen out of my car in East Boston. So
that makes sense.
Rest in peace to me. Exactly.
Everybody wants a hot commodity.
It was Andre Johnson, dude.
Ooh,
my boy, dude. So RIP to that jersey. Easty, those little demons. They also stole my contact lenses, like a case of them, and then threw them away. And somebody contacted me on Facebook and said, "Hey, I think I have your contacts." So I got those back, but they did not throw away my Calvin Johnson jersey. They also stole everything except for my $1,000 iPad Pro. So probably the worst criminals ever, but they did get my jersey.
That's a hell of an oversight.
It's literally the most. They got like the change in the change cup and my contact lenses, but they didn't get the computer that was in my car. So good job.
If it's like a job and they're going back. What'd you see? Yeah, we saw an iPad. Nice. So what'd you come back with? Andre Johnson jersey and some contact lenses.
Check these out. Yeah, dude. Check these puppies.
They're not even the right prescription. Come on, dude.
Medical, dude. So anyway, Chargers -5.5 at Patriots. Over unders 40. Any bet there?
Probably Chargers to cover. That'd be about it. And that even scares me. That might be one where I would tease it down a little bit just to get, you got to bake in that Chargers risk because, as everyone likes to say on X, the Chargers will charger or the Chargers will charge, whatever verb we've now made that team to be.
The play, will you just play up or down to whoever you're playing? The Ravens do the same thing where it's like whatever it is. Like if it's a good team, they'll play great. If it's a bad team, they'll play terrible. They'll manage to be within that spread somehow. So Keenan Allen might not play. We already know Josh Palmer's out. We already know Mike Williams is out. Like this team went out of their way to get extra guys, and now they're in big trouble, man. So like, would you start Quentin if Keenan Allen's out? Quentin Johnston, is he? Now he's probably not wide receiver 2 range, but are we talking 3 wide receiver leagues and a flex? Are you starting to get this guy, or you just don't trust the guy?
It would have to be deeper formats to do it. It seems like if he's not in the doghouse, he's got 1 foot in, and he's kind of on his way in there. It would have to be a deeper league for me to trust him. I do have a couple of leagues where I'm rolling out Jalen Guyton just because, he got the targets last week. You just got to hope one of the ones farther downfield can actually connect this time against New England, which, this isn't the New England secondary of the past. Like, you can throw on them. So, yeah.
It's not even the New England secondary of earlier this year. They lost Christian Gonzalez. You know what I mean?
True. That's true. Well, it's a tale of 2 seasons then. That's how you look at it with them. But, yeah, I'm not overly confident in starting Quentin Johnson. Like I said, he's knocking on the door of the doghouse.
Rex Timothy is popping in the chat, dude. Came in at the worst time with a Texans hat on the screen. He's a Colts fan. And Rex, we already talked about the Colts. So after the show, you're gonna have to go back and check that out.
Here's a Texans mug for you. And then if I can move my my wedding ring around fast enough, because somehow it's on the inside. Right there's the Texans logo on the old wedding ring. So
boom, dude. Let's go. Baby.
I can get more stuff for you too. If I open this door, I got a bunch of other stuff in
we believe you, buddy. We believe you. I'm not trusting Gerald Everett personally. People can if they want. This guy's not a full-time player. He's never played over 80% of the snaps for this team. In 26 games, he's only played over 70% 3 times. Like Gerald Everett, the least trustworthy dude ever. But I mean, if you're really crushed for buys, maybe you start him. On the Patriots side, no. So this is interesting. I tweeted this out earlier, Colby. I didn't put it in the show sheet because it was pretty recent, but apparently, so there's no Kendrick Bourne's out. Kayshon Boutte is dealing with a shoulder injury. Demario Douglas has not cleared concussion protocol. Malik Willis was spotted wearing a red jersey, which all the position players wear red for the Patriots. The quarterbacks wear black. So kind of interesting there. He was taking some QB reps, but also was working out. He's done half his work with the quarterbacks, half his work with the wide receivers. So I don't know. Could be in for some wild stuff this week. I'm not sure. I'm not trusting any of that stuff. I'm just interested to see what it could be. But the one guy we can't trust, Ramondre Stevenson. What do you think?
Yeah. Back-to-back weeks, 20-plus carries and 5 targets. Volume is king. It'll be there. And, we were talking before we got on. Weather could be a little bit interesting there, but it would play up short passing attack and the rushing game. And that is where Stevenson thrives. So, fire him up everywhere.
Yeah, let's do it. In fact, why don't I like him for FFPC? So why don't we take a minute right now to do the FFPC team and get that set up, and then we can just go through the teams and then answer questions in the chat. So FFPC quickly becoming one of my favorite places to play. I know, Colby, you said that you never played over here. So welcome to the Crazy Dome. Welcome to the Thunderdome.
Gonna have to use that promo code and get in.
Get in, dude. Use promo code Coop. They'll give you $25 when you deposit 35 or more. I suggest Colby deposit 45 because there's 2 levels you can play at: $35 buy-in or $200 buy-in. If you deposit 45, they give you 25. That gets you to 70, gets you 2 weeks of playtime. And you're going to want to have money in there for the playoffs because that's their funnest one. It's the playoff challenge where, you make a lineup and it's your lineup all the way through. Now, here's the rub with FFPC and why it's so crazy compared to the other weekly games is that there's no salaries, there's no draft, there's none of that confusing stuff. You can basically start anyone you want with the one exception. You cannot start 2 players from the same team. So we can get wild here, but we can't start like Kelsey and Mahomes. And I actually kind of like that because how many times in, like these DFS sites or whatever, you play and somebody has a crazy stack. Like they stack your Stroud with Tank Dell, who goes nuts. And now all of a sudden, if you didn't have that, you just lose. Yep. That doesn't happen here. You can't stack them up, so you got to go in and play it straight. So let's make a quick team right now. And we were just talking Patriots. I think we should use Ramondre Stevenson, not even just because I'm a homer, but this guy hadn't had a single. Let's see. Let's do it like that. Yeah, I like that right there. Mm-hmm. He hadn't had a single 100-yard game from scrimmage all year. And now he's had 3 in back-to-back weeks. So I want to get him in there. Chat, throw some guys out there. This is the rule I've been making. Colby, is that if we win, right, $35, 30 teams is the one we're doing. So you win a couple $100 if you win. If you come in second, you win like a little over 100. If you come in third, you just get your money back. But if we come in second or third at the expo, if we come in second, we'll get drinks for ourselves. If we come in first, we're getting drinks for all the Fantasy Alarm crew. And if somebody in the chat throws a name out that we use this week, you're in. You're getting at least a beer with us at the expo if you go to the expo. So I'm throwing it out to the chat. Get some names in there. We only want absolute high-end smash spot plays. We're talking like, the best of the best of the best because we can start whoever we want. So let me ask you first, Colby. We have to get a Texan in there. So who you got from the Texans this week?
It would have been Dalton Schultz, but that hamstring injury has popped up. We don't necessarily need to go Brevin Jordan. I don't know between Collins and Dell who is going to get the Surtain shadow. I don't want to necessarily pick wrong. So I think CJ Stroud's the logical choice. His home road splits this year are pretty gnarly. And I do mean gnarly in that like he's amazing at home and only very good on the road. And you can get to Denver. I do think Houston's going to have success running the ball, which is going to open up the patented San Francisco scheme play action. And it seems like he's going to get Noah Brown this week. And we all know all Noah Brown does is he goes 20-plus yards downfield and then just waits for the ball, and it's just there, and he catches it.
And they find him, dude. Yeah, he's down there somewhere.
We should get those big plays, so I'll go Stroud.
I love that. And that's why we use Mahomes because, he throws it to Kelsey, but he spreads it around. So you can't really pick a wide receiver, but the quarterback's going to get the points. That's the best way to combat this. So since we're going Stroud at QB, that means we can't go Mahomes. Let's put Travis Kelce in there. Why not? Travis Kelce at tight end. What about wide receivers? We need since we're not using Tua, we probably got to use Tyreek Hill or Waddle, right? Should we just go Tyreek?
I would go Tyreek. Yeah, it's so soft on the Washington's soft in the
Right.
secondary. And I mean, would you be surprised if Hill has like 8 for 100 by halftime? I wouldn't
Not
be.
at all.
So
Not at
yeah,
all.
we got to put him in there.
Yeah. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, right? Going up against Alante Taylor in the slot.
Yep.
Yeah, Anthony, we see you in the chat with Njoku. Yeah, we kind of trump carded your Njoku with Travis Kelce there. But sorry about that, brother. Yeah, I don't think the thing with this is that we've tried to get cute in the past, like use like Njoku at the flex, but the teams that win are loaded. And there have been weeks where we've come pretty close, and the difference has been like, we used Austin Eckler and they used Keenan Allen. Or we used a different defense, they used a different defense. So we do want to use the chalk of the chalk. Those are the teams that win this thing. So let's get Amon-Ra St. Brown in there. We got Tyreek Hill in there. AJ Brown. The San Francisco 49ers game, we need guys on both sides. So what's a guy you like from that game?
So it's going to come down to what we do at the other running back, because obviously you're never going to be wrong for playing McCaffrey because he's so good. But I do love Brandon Ayuk. He crushes. I wrote about it in the DFS wide receiver coach at Fantasy Alarm. I believe Philly plays a good bit of man, and Ayuk has crushed man coverage this year, where like Debo's only catching like 30% of his targets against man coverage. So I love Ayuk. And then, I mean, that takes away McCaffrey from us, but the other running back, I'm gonna bop around here. I really like Derrick Henry against Carolina last week, so I feel like I'm obligated to like Rachaad White against that same Carolina defense this week. And I don't think we'll really look at anybody else from Tampa Bay other than probably like a Mike Evans, but I would take White over him.
And White catches passes, dude. White catches passes. So, you got it. It's different from him and Derrick Henry there. So, all right, I'm in on Ayuk, man. And everybody, I write the tight end DFS articles over at Fantasy Alarm. Colby writes the wide receiver ones, right? Vreeland writes the RBs. Impemba writes QB, Malin writes defense. Unlike other websites that just, one guy is like, here are some guys I like. We take it very, very seriously. So if Colby says he likes Brandon Ayuk this week, we love Brandon Ayuk this week, and we're going to get him in this lineup. So let's get that rocking. Shout out you, Colby. Good job. I want to get Alvin Kamara in because there's so many, they're missing so many players, right? They're missing they're missing Michael Thomas, they're missing Shaheed. Olave's still in concussion protocol, and Detroit. I mean, you can run on these guys, and he's probably going to catch a decent number of passes. So let's get him in there. We need 2 more flexes, and then we need defense and a kicker. I always do the defense and the kicker at the end from what's left over, just because we're not going to go out and start the 49ers defense and rob ourselves of that, So now we can start anybody we want. This is where it gets interesting.
Could we look? Would you look at a Michael Pittman type going against Tennessee? I mean, he's basically a lock for 10 targets every single week, and we know Tennessee's pretty vulnerable in the secondary. But if you want to go higher end, I like AJ Brown. He's been great against zone coverage this year, and San Fran likes to run that a good bit. So that would give us the eagle that we're looking for.
We have to start an eagle. Well, I mean, we might as well. We could go Pittman and AJ Brown, and then just call that a team. Like it feels like a pretty rock solid team there. And then for kicker and defense, what we're going to have left is we can go Browns against the Rams. We can go Steelers against the Cardinals, Jets against the Falcons. Maybe that might be the play right there. What do you think?
Could we trust Jacksonville against Jake Browning? They have enough playmakers, so I don't know. If that may not be quite the way.
No, let's get it in there on Monday. And then
that's Cincy against Jacksonville.
We don't want that at all. That's actually the opposite of what we want, dude. Anthony wants Atlanta against the Jets and Tim Boyle. What do you think?
Yeah, I do like that.
Let's get him in. Let's get it. We smoked Anthony on the Njoku pick, so we'll go with his pick on that one. You better be right.
We owe him one.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what we owe him after this week. And then we need a kicker here. We got the Boz against Arizona, which that's actually not a terrible play. I don't know if I like Cameron Dicker in the cold in New England in the rain. Can't go McPherson. Not going to start Eddie Pinheiro. Not going to start Matt Prater. I actually think the play is to go with
the other option.
McManus.
You could go McManus. The other thing you could go with too, you could go, well, depending, I see Lutz has a little questionable there, but Houston does have that bend but don't break, and Denver's going to be very willing to just go down the field and potentially kick field goals if Houston holds them, and they could score a little bit. And that game, I highly doubt Houston has the roof open. So You could look to him. You could look to Lutz, or I mean, I'm fine with going whoever you said that I have already now
What's
forgotten.
the injury with Lutz, dude? Yeah. I mean, Lutz has been good lately. Let's go with Lutz. Let's do it.
Yeah. Let's see what his injury is.
Pull that up. But yeah, so everybody out there, go over to myffpc.com, use promo code Coop, deposit 35 or more. They'll give you $25. You can compete against us. Heck, I'll tell you right now, it's number 65131 is what I'm in, Team Coop Conway. If you looked at our lineup and said, hey, that's pretty good, except I can do slightly better, then I mean, you could just win a bunch of money. I mean, I'm kind of giving things away here, and you probably shouldn't do that because that's kind of mean. But if you did want to do that, then that's on the table. But if you are going to be mean and do that, use promo code Coop when you sign up at the very least at myffpc.com. What's the deal with Lutz? And let's wrap this up.
Said it's a hip. He's limited. He was limited on Thursday.
We're not starting a kicker with a bad hip. We can start anybody we want. We're not starting any kickers with hip injuries. We're starting McManus. There it is.
Good enough for me.
That's the squad. All right, let's clear the deck on some questions, and then we'll try and get through some more of these matchups. Let's see. Ann Dunn wants to know, Keenan Allen sits. Is it Romeo Doubs? Is it Tyler Algier? Or is it Dameon Pierce? What is it? And also, what is up with Dameon Pierce?
Listen, that's one of my bigger misses this year. I definitely overestimated him being able to pick up the zone blocking scheme, and it just hasn't quite. You watch him, I'll tell you what, I love the guy, but you watch some of the highlights, and it's like open lane, somebody head down, I'm running right for that guy and then try to roll him over. So I would probably, I don't love it, but I'd probably go Romeo just and hope that he gets some passing volume. And I mean, they should be playing from behind in theory. So I would go him. Pierce is now the RB2. Singletary is the lead dog for them.
Right. And the pass, and the other part of it is the pass, and it kind of stinks. That's why he played like 11 snaps, is that Singletary is a good pass blocker, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he understands this, and it's like Pierce, north-south guy is never going to work. It's like, even if you took a guy like Le'Veon Bell and tried to switch him and make him Pierce, it wouldn't work. Like, this offense is good for Le'Veon Bell with the stretch running, but like when you saw Le'Veon Bell try to run north-south, it actually was terrible, right? You need those guys that have patience, and the angry run of the year award player is not the guy for this game. I know it just kind of stinks. He will rise again, I think. Full PPR, Achane or Puka in the flex.
I got burned by Achane the week when he came back and then left with the knee injury. I'm going to keep a close eye and see if I can get any report from him, but I think at this point, I think Puka's the safer play. He at least gets the targets. I know it's a bad matchup, but
I need a full practice today to even consider Achane.
Yeah.
Give Kelsey, Pittman, and James Cook to get AJ Brown, Kittle, and Derrick Henry. Why don't you guys just trade cars? Why don't you trade lives, dude? That's like your whole team, bro. Kelsey, Pittman, James Cook for AJ Brown, Kittle, and Derrick Henry. What do you think, dude?
Okay, so we're trading great tight end for good tight end, good receiver for great receiver, and then two.
I think I do it, actually. I think I do it for the Brown, Kittle, Henry side.
Yeah, I think.
What is the thought process behind this? Why does this kid send you this trade?
Yeah, I don't know. Give Kelsey. I like, obviously, the Kittle to Kelsey jump, or the Kelsey to Kittle drop down is pretty significant. But on the same hand, the Pittman up to AJ Brown is a pretty good jump.
Big.
And then James Cook's been better of late, and Henry just scored 2 touchdowns. But even in that game, I was not impressed.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe James Cook he's kind of boring too, though. Like, I feel like that's kind of lateral. Yeah.
It feels like making a move because like the trade deadline is like on Sunday once the games kick off, and I'm just itching to make a move.
I'll tell you this, Love. I think the only reason I would do this trade, if I was you and I had to win this week, and James Cook being on bye is a killer for me, then maybe I do it and start Derrick Henry and just, because the difference maker really, if it boils down to it, is you get one extra game out of Derrick Henry and you get out of James Cook. But I don't know if I love it. Last question, let's get back to it. Shane P wants to know, Achane or Henry? Has Monty Pacheco and B Robinson, you got to tell us which B Robinson that is. But I want Achane, and that's the end of that. So let's get back, because we're now halfway through the show. This is what happens, Colby. It happens every time. No, and I do push things along. I'm like, in the middle of talking, I'm just like, no, or like that question, I'm like, no, that's it, whatever, we're moving on. We've gone through 2 games now. We're 35 minutes into the show. So
we're doing good.
Actually, for this show, we're actually doing pretty good. Lions -4 at the Saints, over under 47. So good game for fantasy football potentially. Is there a bet there at all, or?
I just take Lions money line.
Yeah, I think so, man. Saints are all banged up, dude. I don't know
Yeah, I mean, I
where.
guess you could go Lions cover too, but they're going to win this game. The Saints have minimal to do.
Yeah.
Anyways,
Jameson Williams' interest level, both in redraft and dynasty. Where are you at with him?
more so excited in Dynasty because the usage has been there a little bit of late. We've known he needs the big play, but if he can actually get the volume, then you start blending opportunity and production, and then he's always going to have this fantasy ceiling that can be very high, but until the volume comes with it, you're just kind of closing your eyes and throwing darts. So the increased usage is very exciting.
Yes, I think down the road he's going to be better, but I think he needs a different quarterback because there's certain quarterbacks that just run the plays as they're called, right? Like
Yeah.
Jared Goff, if you look at it, some quarterbacks like Sam Howell and some of these guys, they only actually throw the ball on like 84, 85% of the dropbacks. Jared Goff throws the ball on 97% of the dropbacks. You call the play, he throws it to Amon-Ra, he throws it to Sam Laporta. He's not extending the play. He's never running. And like for these guys like Stroud, he moves around and gets those guys open. Goff is just not that guy. He's not gonna move around and let Jameson Williams get open down there. He will just chuck it up to him, but I mean, it hasn't been super effective. Where do you rank Goff this week? Like, not exact spot again, but like, is he a guy where you sit there and say, in my single QB leagues, if I have Jared Goff, I'm starting him?
If he were at home, I think I would say 100%. I think this week he's going to be flirting with that QB1, QB2 line. He's going to be right around it. I know the Saints are incredibly banged up and the matchups are going to be pretty good for him, but like the home road splits with him they're noticeable. And so with some of the other quarterbacks that we have on the slate, but also the lack of quarterbacks that we have this week, he's probably just within that QB1 tier, but he's flirting with that line. Actually, I'm a little bit lower this week on him.
Yeah, me too. With the Saints, the Saints, they're missing MT, they're missing Shaheed, they might miss Olave. So we're looking at A.T. Perry probably at split end. Lynn Bowden played a bunch of snaps last week, and then Keith Kirkwood's the other guy that plays like slot. You're the wide receiver guy? DFS anybody or just no?
Alvin Kamara and Juwan Johnson.
Yeah, Juwan Johnson, baby. I mean, he's a converted wide receiver, so that's what I look at. People are like, "Oh, we're going to see more Tim Tebow." It's like they're not going to line Tim Tebow up at wide receiver. Like he's A-dot. Besides the one catch last week that he random 30-yard wheel route, his A-dot has been like 2 or 3 yards over the last couple of weeks. So maybe a little more Tebow, but I like Juwan Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, hey, you know what? We got through a game pretty quickly there. Not too shabby. Falcons -2 at Jets. Over under 33.5. Anything there? I mean, what the heck?
I won't even put this game on, to be honest. No interest.
No. Shane says Taysom Hill's going to run the show. Honestly, maybe, but probably not, dude.
He'll frustratingly be involved.
I know. Well, the thing with Taysom Hill, though, is that I personally think that it would be better for Taysom Hill if Chris Olave plays, because this guy benefits from the team making it down to the red zone. You want the dink and dunk Derek Carr. Derek Carr only has 2 touchdowns over 20 yards this year. That's perfect for Taysom Hill. Dink and dunk, get it to Taysom Hill red zone. He's almost like a kicker where it's out of his control. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, for real.
People ask me, like, how do you analyze it? Do you look at quarterbacks? Do you look at tight ends? Do you look, you know what I mean? And what I do for Taysom Hill is I think about, are the Saints going to be able to move the football? Because if they can move the football and get down to the red zone, then Taysom Hill can have 2-3 touchdowns. However many times they get down there, that's however many touchdowns he could potentially have. But if they're struggling to move the ball, that's why Jameis Winston would have been terrible for Taysom Hill, because he likes to just chuck it downfield. And if you throw a 50-yard touchdown or you throw a 50-yard interception, that leaves no room for Taysom Hill. So I thought we had gotten through that game. We went back to it and wasted more time on it. Excellent. Good job, chat. Falcons -2. Again, Desmond Ridder, his over-under set at like 180 yards, and I'm asking myself, how? How does he get to 180 yards, Colby, against this defense with his pass catchers? How does it happen?
I don't think it does.
I don't either. I'm betting the under.
I think if you, depending on like what site you play on, you might be able to, like, I know Prize Pick sometimes has like punts as an option.
Yeah.
That's about the only thing I'm looking at in this game. That would be an over. That's about it.
I did that. I bet the over for punts for Super Bowl once, and I was the most annoying person at the party. I was these every time they punted, I was like, yes. And everyone was like, will you shut up, dude? I think it was like the Ravens 49ers Super Bowl. And I was like, uh, and I was I was like, I just wasn't interested because the Patriots weren't in it. I was being like a little brat. So I was rooting for punts. And I actually didn't hit my line because they didn't count it as a punt at the end of the game when they took the safety on purpose. Remember that?
Mm.
So I was annoying the entire game, and then I definitely the karma caught up to me at the very end because
Imagine being the guy at the party who wants the punts. You got a low scoring, crappy game, but not enough to win your line where you were hoping for a bad game. That's
that's
like
what
the
I'm saying.
worst. That's the
I was
worst.
I was literally sitting there. I'm
Oh
like, they're
man.
punching it. I'm like, they're gonna punch it one more time. I'm gonna win. And then they held everybody, and they they held
Oh
everybody on
boy.
purpose and took a safety on purpose, and everyone was dogging me, and rightfully so. It was actually one of the funniest things. But anyway, it's like then on the Jets, you start Hall or Wilson if you have to, and you definitely start the Jets D if you have them. So we don't have to even talk about it. I really don't even want to talk about this game. 33.5 over under. Why would we talk about that game on a fantasy football show, Colby?
Only for punts.
Only for punts, dude. Yeah, smash the over on the punts. Somebody find me a punt line on like DraftKings or something. I bet they'll have it. Cardinals at Steelers. This one I feel all right about. -5.5 in favor of the Steelers at home. Over under is only 41. This is a tough week to rank Kyler Murray. Where do you rank Kyler? He's for those that haven't been paying attention. Marquise Brown and Michael Wilson, both DNPs last 2 practices, did not practice last 2 weeks. So if they don't, last 2 days. If they don't practice today, you got to prepare for life without Marquise Brown, which is probably going to see Zach Pascal at split end, and then Greg Dortch and Rondell Moore matching at slot flanker. Does that sound good to you, Colby?
I mean, no. But I believe I saw Michael Wilson has been officially ruled out, I believe, and they're, quote, hopeful that Brown can play. So AK, it seems very limited. I mean, Kyler's going to run the ball. So you're basically at this point, we're going to hope that they can move it enough that we can get a rushing score or two from Kyler. Right. So I'd still I would still start him, honestly, just because, and you can throw on the Pittsburgh corners. The only thing that really scares me in this game is, and you kind of mentioned it, that you like the Pittsburgh running attack to have success. Yeah. Is this game going to go too fast and the Arizona defense gets too tired? They can't stop them. Long drives, limited offensive snaps. Like, this game could be very boring unless you own Najee Harris and Jalen Warren in fantasy. Like that, this could be a very ugly game where like Pittsburgh controls the ball for like 39 to 40 minutes of this game.
Yeah, that's what happened. That exact thing happened versus the Cardinals with the 49ers, right? Mm-hmm. They only ran like 50-something snaps, and Christian McCaffrey scored 3 touchdowns. Actually, it happened in pretty much every Cardinals game, kind of. Like the Bengals, when they were at full strength, did it too. And Jamar Chase scored 3 touchdowns, and nobody else did anything. I think George Kittle had 1 catch in the game with San Francisco because it was like Christian McCaffrey was unstoppable. So the game was over before it even started. So that could easily happen here. It's not a good matchup for Trey McBride, and he's a little nicked up. So I might move McBride lower than I have him. Like, you're going to start Kelsey, you're going to start Kittle, you're going to start Laporta. Evan Ingram against the Bengals, maybe even over McBride. Mm-hmm. Maybe, right? Like, the Bengals are second worst team. So I might have to reassess where we have McBride, but you can only move him so far with Hawk on bye and Mark Andrews out and Kincaid on bye and likely on. I don't even want to talk about it. It's tight end is a mess right now. I do this myself too. Like, I don't know why I rank every player. I don't know why I consistently be like, oh yeah, I'll start all your tight end lineups for everybody, for the entire industry. I should just stop doing that. Anyway, Dolphins 9.5, Commanders over under 49.5. So even though the Dolphins are supposed to steamroll here, they expect the Commanders to fight back, which that's the best setup for fantasy football, right?
Oh, absolutely. You have an offense in Miami whose strengths exactly align with the weaknesses of the opposing defense. So the Miami passing attack is going to be just fine. But then on the other side, you don't have a team that has this methodology of, well, we're going to run it a lot and just try to keep the ball out of their hands. They're going to let Sam Howell drop back probably, 40 plus times is not exactly a bold take anymore for him. He does it in literally every game. Like, passing volume is going to be there. They should at least move the ball a little bit because there are some advantageous matchups for that Washington passing attack, mainly in the slot. That way you don't have to face Ramsey and Howard on the outside. So, yeah, I mean, this is a very favorable fantasy shootout type of environment.
Was it a mistake for us not to put Terry McLaurin in our FFPC lineup? But thinking back, like who could we even take out? Like we're not going to take out Amon-Ra.
It's tough to take anybody out. And then when you look like this, I don't want to exaggerate too much, but there could be 5 Commanders with 7 targets each. Because he just Sam Howell just spreads it around. I mean, McLaurin's gonna be involved. I really like Curtis Samuel this week. Dotson's gonna get his share of targets. Howell loves throwing it to the running back. Almost it's like in his contract that he has to X amount of times per games.
Right.
Like, yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think we necessarily have to have a Commander receiver in there. It's kind of one of those like I don't let me finish the sentence before we get the eye rolls. It's Mahomes-esque in that he spreads it around so much that instead of taking one of the pieces because he doesn't have a Kelsey type, you're better off just taking Howell.
Good thing you paused and did that in there because I would have had Tony clip that. I would have just to mess with you. I would have had Tony. I would have clipped the end part and the beginning part out, and just had him clip the part where you, Tony. We might be able to cut that part out where he. Yeah. I see Tony nodding in his head. Yeah, we might just cut that the disclaimer out and have you and post a Colby
Sam
Conway.
Howell is Patrick Mahomes. End quote. No context needed.
Yeah, we could do that. I see him nodding his head behind the glass. So yeah, we might be able to actually do that. So perfect.
I'm in.
But you're starting all these. That's a good thing about the Dolphins and the 49ers is like they use the fullback, right? And for the Dolphins, Durham Smythe is just playing meaningless snaps. So you start everybody, right? You start Tyreek, Waddle, and then both the running backs and Tua, and you go on living your life. So we don't really have to talk about them for fantasy. Yep. Broncos at Texans. We're there. We made it. I put that at the end of the 1 o'clock games because I wanted you to have to wait for it. So Broncos at Texans, man, -3, 47.5 over under. I'm just going to hand this one to you. And I want you to just, because I know you've been thinking about this game. Why don't you just tell me what you're thinking? Broncos, Texans, dude.
Yeah. I mean, big game. I obviously would like to go with the Texans. I am wanting them to win. I will be honest. I do expect Stroud to have a good game. It's a tough matchup, but I like him to have a good game. This game is trending under for me, if I'm being honest. I think Stroud's going to give us enough and we're going to be fine from a fantasy perspective. But Denver is very methodical on offense. Not there. I don't want to say dink and dunk because they do take some shots here and there, but it is very like we're okay and we're going to work our way down. Houston's been better against the run, but they're still allowing a decent amount of yards per clip, and their corners, they just can't get off the field. Denver's going to sustain drives. That's going to eat up time. Denver's methodical offensive approach versus Houston's bend but don't break allows we're going to move down 7-8 minutes later, maybe a field goal. Houston's going to get the ball. You can run on Denver. Do we see a good bit of Devin Singletary? CJ Stroud then makes the plays from there. That's going to eat up more time off the clock, and they're going to work their way down. I don't know. This just seems like a 24. I know that the final score last week was 24-21, but that's exactly what it seems like to me. Like I don't like taking unders in Texans game just because they can pop off because they have a good enough offense and a bad enough defense, aka very friendly fantasy environment. But I don't know. This screams under to me. For some reason I keep getting these under vibes.
Well, you look at the Russell Wilson game logs, and it's like I look at it and I'm like, well, why isn't he doing more? And then I look at the last 5 games and they won every game. So I'm like, well, I guess he really doesn't have to do anymore. He hasn't thrown a single pick in 5 games. And you're right, it's very methodical. And it's going to boil down, really, kind of at the end of the day. The only guy that can score is Courtland Sutton. And he has been scoring. Last week, he dropped one in the corner of the end zone, but every other game for 5 straight games, he's been scoring. So, like, at the end of the day, can Courtland Sutton catch the ball in the end zone, or are they kicking a field goal? That's going to determine where this one goes. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting one, though. But no Kareem Jackson means that, oh, man, I wish Dalton Schultz was playing. It would have been the perfect matchup for Dalton Schultz.
And I will give a quick shout out for Denver as well. If you do want to zig while some will zag to like Courtland Sutton, Jerry Jeudy, if he plays and is healthy, is going to have a very good matchup. If you look at the last couple of weeks, they, aka the opponents, have religiously been targeting Tavierre Thomas. Tavierre Thomas, I've said it before, he is a fine slot corner. He is a PFF darling. No matter what he does, he's graded high. That's just I don't make the rules. I have no affiliation to PFF, but he is always graded very well. But you look, Jacksonville had a very concerted effort to attack him in the slot. Then when you look at what Houston's done this week, they released Shaq Griffin, so he's not on the team anymore. most likely because Desmond King might start playing some more slot reps. And I mean, net neutral compared to Tavier Thomas. So slot receiver for Denver, I think, is going to have some success, and that would be Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, like, and you also, it's kind of like Madden grades. You need to look at what composes these grades, because sometimes it's like really good tackles or they have an interception. Like the pick sixes for Jerron Bland make him like a 92 on PFF, but we saw him last night. Did he look like a 92 last night? I don't think so. The same thing with Madden. It's like when I go in, all I care about is speed, right? So like all these guys with like awareness grades and stuff that are juicing them
I was
up.
gonna say that's what you need. You need the awareness. That's how you get that overall up real fast and
Yeah,
bad.
right, exactly. It's like, I look at Tom Brady, I'm like, how is he at 99 when his speed's like a 2? But like, so you got to check out what it is. Passes deflected because people are throwing at this guy a lot. Tackles, he's making a lot of tackles on the passes he's letting up. So got to look out for that. Real quick in the chat, start Puka, Dell, Rice, or D-Hop? TD wants to know.
Puka, Dell, Rice, or D-Hop. Pick 2. I mean, you can't sit Tank Dell right now. I mean,
no, you can't.
You just have to roll with him, and then
I think I like Rashee Rice, man. I think I like Rashee Rice.
I think in this case I do too. Yeah. I'm torn with Puka because the volume has been there, and some teams have had success going against Cleveland corners, but I don't know if I want to, especially with like Rashee Rice. So I think I go Dell and Rice.
This guy wants drop 1, start 1, bench 1. I'm dropping Taysom Hill. In any sort of PPR, I'm keeping Trey McBride and I'm keeping Pat Freiermuth. And you're going to start Freiermuth at least maybe Muth this week and next week. And then you start McBride the rest of the way. Yep. Is it worth it to stash Tajay Spears? Yeah. Depending on what else, let us know who is on the wire. But yeah, I mean, like older running backs, pass catching backs coming out behind older running backs is what we want. The guy that tricks everybody is the AJ Dillon type, where when the starter gets hurt, he can't catch passes. So Patrick Taylor runs all the routes. The guys that can catch the passes when the starter gets hurt, like Antonio Gibson, they just give him the whole job. So yeah, those are the guys you stash. And there it is. Tony, producer in the chat, says we need to hurry on the remaining games. Got about 10 minutes left. We do got to be out because Brit's Blitz is up after this. So we can stretch it to maybe 56 at best, 57, but Tony's got to go produce that. Everybody after the show, hang out for Brit's Blitz. So we got a rapid fire. The over-under by Ann for number of games we would get through today was set at 8, right? We got through 7. So
we did good.
There it is. She said under 8 games, and good call on that one. Anyone that had the under today, good job, man. So yeah, we did okay. But yeah, let's rapid fire. I'm just going to ask you for one take from each game. Your best play from these games or somebody you're looking to avoid. So Panthers at Buccaneers. Anything from the wide receiver article, anybody that you're fading. I know you like Rachaad White, so I'm not going to let you say Rachaad White.
No, I was going to say Rachaad White first with overall RB1 this week. That was going to be my take from this one. But of the Tampa Bay receivers, Mike Evans is the one you want.
Love it. Browns at Rams, -4, over under 40.5. What are your thoughts, man?
Oh, geez. Oh, man.
This would have been such a fun game if everyone was healthy. There's a world where this is a good game.
I'll just say I'll kind of take a cheap way out, but trust Kyron despite the tough matchup. The volume is too good to ignore.
That's not cheap at all, dude. That's tough advice, man. Browns D with Myles Garrett. Are they droppable if he decides he's a no-go?
Yeah, because you don't want to carry 2 defenses. It's not worth it.
Right. 49ers though, keep an eye for Browns. Even without Myles Garrett, I might start him championship week against the Jets. So, but you might have to add them at that stage if you get there. 49ers at Eagles. This is the big game. Let me know. I want to know who wins this game.
I will go 49ers.
Yeah, we've been split on this, man. We've been real split on this. I like the Eagles. Howard's on the 49ers. A lot of people on the 49ers, but spread's 3 on the road. So the books are liking the Eagles, man. And, the rest of it, we don't really know what's going on there. Sunday Night Football, Chiefs at Packers. Chiefs are favored by 6. Who's your favorite Packer pass catcher to play?
I know. I will actually go. I wrote about it in the Red Zone report, but Christian Watson's gotten a lot of red zone looks of late. So it scares me to death to trust him, but I'm going to go with the numbers of late. And there's a couple of other pass catchers there a little bit banged up. So yeah, give me Christian Watson from the Green Bay side. And I think we see in the notes here you have Rashee Rice is here to stay. Wide receiver 1 for this team.
Love that, dude. Yeah, if Aaron Jones and Jaden Reed, both DNPs the last couple of weeks, I might move Tucker Kraft up. So keep an eye out for my tight end rankings on Sunday morning. And then you got Bengals at Jaguars, another one where the schedule makers are sitting back thinking to themselves, all right, nice. This is a good one. We got cat game, both these good teams. And then, of course, yikes. So no Joe Burrow. So now the Jags are favored by 8.5, 38.5 point over under. So they're basically saying the Bengals lie down here. What are your vibes on this game, man?
Well, I'm obviously rooting for the Bengals because I have interest in Jacksonville losing. So
Right.
that's who I'm going with here. But yeah, their loss caused out Burrow. It's tough to run on Jacksonville, so I don't expect a good day for Joe Mixon and the Jaguars offense. They should have some success, especially with Evan Ingram at tight end. So of the pass catcher, I know Calvin Ridley has come on of late, but I think Evan Ingram might be my preferred option in that passing attack, believe it or not.
Oh yeah. Oh dude, I love Evan Ingram this matchup. This team, the Bengals lost both. I was saying it from the start of the year. Like it's so hard to say what defense is going to be good or bad versus the tight end, but I said the Bengals lost both their safeties in free agency. All right, we got to get out. Everyone in the chat, stay on the YouTube channel, hit like, hit subscribe, stay here for Brits Blitz after this. You can get your questions in there. As Rex pointed out, he got his question in the Fantasy Alarm Discord because he's a Fantasy Alarm member. He can get questions answered pretty much any time of day or night, whatever. We're in there hanging out. So Colby, tell everybody what you got going on, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yep. Thanks for having me. At Colby Conway over on X, formerly known as Twitter, and over at Fantasy Alarm, DFS wide receiver coach, and the Red Zone report. So those come out Wednesday and Thursday, respectively.
Yeah. Give me real quick before we go, give me a craft beer that you're liking these days.
Ooh, I will give you, it's a staple here on the coast of North Carolina, but Tropical Lightning by Wilmington Brewing Company.
Tropical Lightning. Go get it, folks. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Colby. Thank you, chat. Thank you, Tony. Everyone hang for Brits Blitz. Have a good weekend, folks.